Welcome to another Fascinator mini episode from Hat Collecting. On the main show, we take a big picture look at the guest's life, and here we take a magnifying glass and we learn more about a specific topic. I am your host, Lacey Artemis, and it is time to get fascinated. I am joined today by Emma Scriver, a freelance journalist. Emma is going to teach us about journalism today. The first question I always start the Fascinator episodes out with is, what do you personally think is the most fascinating thing or aspect about journalism?
Oh, God. What do I find the most fascinating? Honestly, I would say it's probably the people that I get to meet and their stories. I think ultimately at the end of the day, the thing that drives me and keeps me writing is the stories. And I love being able to tell stories, which sounds like such a hokey thing, but I mean, it's so true. I love being able to talk to people. I love to sort of hunt for fascinating and different stories. I love, as weird as it sounds, reading research papers, and I love reading into like different weird internet culture things. And I love reading about what is happening and then speaking to people about those things. And I think that's what drives me. Because we learn from each other, and that's kind of what keeps me going at the end of the day, is that if we stop sharing those stories and we stop learning from one another, then like, where do we go from there? So I think, yeah, that's really my passion and my drive for writing.
That's very cool. Yeah, when I reached out to Emma to kind of discuss what topic we might cover in a Fascinator, she suggested the journalism thing and mentioned a few specific questions that she gets most often from people. And so I decided for this episode, I'm going to do a little bit differently, and I'm going to ask her those questions so that she can give the answers and that you, the audience, can learn from them. So the first question that you had sent was, how do you make it work financially being a freelance journalist?
It's not easy. I think that's the real answer, which sometimes is not an easy answer to hear. So I was a freelance journalist for about 5.5 years. I still am freelance writing, but I have a full-time job now. While I was freelance writing, I had several other jobs on the side. Many of which involved content writing, social media, event planning, you name it, I kind of did it. And I think the reality is that if you want to actually pursue your goal of freelance writing, you're going to have to try and use your other skills to also pay your bills. It's just the media industry as a whole it doesn't pay well. And as much as I love it and as much as I love writing, I don't do it for the money. I do it for the love of the written word, which sounds so like, I'm an artist. But that's the reality of the situation. I'm not doing it to get rich. I'm doing it because I actually love doing it. And for a lot of people, if you're going to be doing it full-time freelance, you need to have a second revenue stream. It's just not possible to do it all with writing. You hear about these dudes who have like $250,000 Substack revenue streams, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know how that's happening, but like, kudos to them.
Forgive me. I'm gonna take the analog to kind of my audience here, just to make sure, because in case anyone else, I just had my brain doesn't like, wait, okay, what does Substack mean? Because I think it's the name of a website, but I don't think that that's the same thing you're referring to.
So Substack is a newsletter platform that a lot of journalists have sort of like they've gotten really sick and tired of writing for publications, and they're like, okay, I'm no longer going to write for publications and I'm just going to start my own newsletter. However, with that being said, it's now been leaked. I don't know if that's the right word to use. It's now been put out into the universe. I guess that's a good way to phrase it. That the owners or the founders of Substack have actually been providing a lot of money to alt-right writers and transphobic writers. Which, I mean, oh, are we really surprised? I mean, this is always what happens. So a lot of journalists who originally were really interested in the platform, having a place where they could sort of make money, make and create the stories that they were originally creating. They've actually left the platform and now they're going down to platforms like Ghost and Button Down because they're similar to Substack, but not quite the same. So
I hadn't heard of those either. So I'm learning lots here. But yeah, whenever something comes up on the show, even if I do kind of know what it is, sometimes like if I think somebody in the audience might not, then I'm like, okay, let's clarify that just so that people aren't like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So the next question here on your list was, how do you come up with your ideas for stories?
Okay. So, how do I come up with my ideas for stories? It's actually a bunch of different ways. So, it's usually by reading other stories, and that's not like I plagiarize those stories, but it's actually by keeping up with different trends that are happening online. It's reading different like health reports, which because I write a lot about mental health, body image, uh, cannabis, psychedelics, and plus size fashion, which I know all of those things seem very unrelated to one another. But for example, a few weeks ago, I wrote something about memes and how they were helping people get through the pandemic. And the reason I wrote about that was because I actually came across a report, a study that was done about how memes were actually helping people with their mental health. And I mean, like, none of this is news to anybody, but like when you have that sort of factual data to back up your story, a lot of times editors or really more interested in providing you with the space and time to write something. So another example of this is I have a cover story coming out in Chatelaine in October that has to do with psychedelics being used for mental health. And it's actually the way that I was able to get that secured was because there is two reports that I was able to come across, one from the University of Alberta, where psychedelics are being researched for adverse childhood experiences. And then there is another university that actually is starting to do research testing with psychedelics, and it's also in Canada. So it's very like my thing is that I actually pay attention to a lot of research trials that are happening in Canada specifically. I do a lot of writing in the US as well, but I think it's really like you just need to pay attention to what's happening online, even Reddit, like, and Discord servers, and B, paying attention to like trials that are happening. Most often, you will find so many ideas from stuff that is literally right in front of you and happening. Another thing that I'm in the midst of actually researching. I don't have enough information currently. Is related to a potential cult, and it's like very wild. And I don't even know if I am like I don't know if I have the chops to even like take that on. That's a very very like tough subject because I think I've mentioned that I am not I didn't go to J school. I'm not a formally trained journalist. But really, if you believe in an idea and you have something, you can turn anything into a piece. I think if you believe in it enough, you just have to find the data to back you up.
Yeah, I think it's you did mention I forgot to specify that off the top that part of the reason that we're kind of doing this like FAQ is because you said like you didn't go to journalism school, so you're kind of self-made and you've had to kind of figure a lot of this stuff out on your own, and that's why people ask you a lot of these questions. So should just clarify that for the viewers. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next question here on your list was, how do you develop your pitches for stories and what goes into a pitch?
Okay, this one is super important. So, one of the things that I really try and do before I even begin to pitch an editor is I try and do a lot of research ahead of time. So, like I was mentioning, this sort of like thing that I'm trying to put together about this cult, I like. I'm probably going to research that for a while. I don't even know if it's a thing. I don't know if it's like, I've noticed some places have written about the essence of what it is, but I don't know if there's enough out there about what they are. I don't want to like give away what it is, but basically what you need to do when you're writing to an editor and you're pitching them a story is you need to make sure that you're writing to the right person, because there's been a lot of times where people will not write to the right person. So one, that's key. Two, make sure that sometimes editors will have very specific pitch guidelines that they want you to follow. And if they don't have something like that, then you can usually just do, it's about maybe like a paragraph or so, and everybody's different in the way they do it. The way I do it is I put pitch in my subject line, and then I put in what the actual topic is about. And then in the body of the email, I actually just introduce who I am, give them a link to all of my bylines, and then I give them a headline of what the story is about, deck, which is just sort of like a little bit of a summary of what the story is about, and then about 200-300 words. That even might be seen as too long. Again, everybody's completely different about what they're looking for, but 200 to 300 words, kind of summarizing what the story would be. And in that 200 to 300 words, usually I will call out who my sources will be and tell them that I have verified with those people that they will actually be willing to speak with me on the subject. And I have confirmed with those individuals that they're going to chat with me. Do you have to be that thorough? No, you don't. You could just say, I'm planning to reach out to these like sources. If they don't work out, I have other sources that I can reach out to. You can also reference other research that you have done. You can also, provide any pre-reporting that you have done. But that's like basically it. You're trying to kind of sell them on why this needs to be in their outlet. And then also when you're putting it together, you need to try and you're trying to give them a sense of why it fits for them. And I think a lot of times when people are putting pitches together, they just sort of put a pitch together and then send it out to a bunch of places. So they're not tailoring it for the editor at all. And that's where a lot of people lose out.
So people, I guess it makes sense. One of the questions that I often ask in the Fascinators as well is any resources or advice or things like that for people who are looking to get into this themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first got started, nobody taught me anything. I just was kind of like, I can write, I can do this. I'm just going to go out there and do this. It's fine. I got this. And it was scary. And I got a lot of rejections at first. And what I'm here to tell you is do not take rejections as that you are bad at writing or that your ideas are bad or that you need to give up or it's a personal attack or any of that. Honestly, at the end of the day, you should just like always keep going. And I think I was telling someone this earlier today, but there's tons of Facebook groups, there's tons of meetups. Recently, I just joined the Canadian Association of Journalists, and I remember for years I was like, I don't think I can join them. Like, I'm not an actual journalist. And I just joined. I was like, oh, I guess I am. So there's like this imposter syndrome that happens. Um, so your ideas matter, your voice matters, your writing matters. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. It's sometimes this like fear that we have to conquer ourselves to remember that like we can do it. And I think it's just about finding those groups, either, whether they be online, on Twitter, on Facebook, on TikTok, wherever it may be, and just connecting with those people and connecting with others and being like, hey, can I chat with you? Can I sort of like ask you about how you did this? Because honestly, that's so important. And some of the people that I've met throughout my years of being in the industry have helped me so much. I know Haley Watson. She is, she used to be at TVO. Now she's an instructor at Ryerson. Her and I used to organize monthly meetups for journalists. And we put this invite each and every month, and we would invite like, I think it was like 30 women and non-binary and trans journalists, and we were just like, listen, if you can come, you can come, and if you can't, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But like, we just all want to get together for like a drink, sort of like a bitch session, talk about like what is happening, and you know, have you landed anything this month, have you not, like what it like, we all have to support each other. We're not in competition with one another. Let's just all like sort of be here for one another. And I think that is the thing. When you start to realize that all the other people in this industry are not your competition, they're actually your friends, and you're all here to support one another, that is when you start to level up.
Very cool. And actually, just wanted to clarify as well, because I don't think I remember if you told me this already, but how many years have you been doing this for now?
I don't, God, I don't even know. Because I think,
Greater than or less than 10? 10 years.
I mean, so here's the thing. Here's my origin story, if you will. I started in it very randomly. So I used to help with a blog, magazine ish. I don't know what you want to call it, but it was in like the early aughts. It was something called Soundproof Magazine. I did music writing for them. And I got into it by accident. They were just down a writer, and I did PR for them. And it was Canadian Music Week. And they were like, you know how to write, you're in PR, go cover some shows for us. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then after I did that, it was like, I really love doing this. And then I just sort of kept doing it. I think that might have been in like 2005. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at Facebook. But yeah, it's been a while. And I think I didn't really start taking it seriously until probably 2013 or 14. So Let's say that.
No, that's fair. And it wasn't a defend yourself kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just for people who are watching who may not know, like what sort of amount of time is this kind of this feedback perspective advice coming from? Because I guess it could, if it was just for a couple of years, then I mean that's still valid, but then it's been quite a while. So
Yeah, and it's interesting because sometimes people will come to me and they're like, "You've had such an amazing career. How have you done this?" And I'm like, I mean, I've been doing it for a while. I don't know. And some people it happens like right away. And for me, I was like, I wrote for a blog for a million years and I didn't get paid. So I mean, if that's illustrious and like amazing, then I guess so. But it's taken a while, and now people like come to me because they know I write about certain topics, and they know when they ask me to write something that they're going to get a specific type of story. And that comes with time. It's not like it just happened overnight. And I'm really thankful that editors trust me with those types of stories. But it didn't just happen like in a year. It's been a while.
Yeah, for sure. So to kind of wrap things up, or wrap up the formal questions.
Yeah.
The last question that you said that people frequently ask you is, how do you build your online brand?
Yeah. So as a person who works full time in social media, but also hates being online, um, the way I like to explain this is social media is one of these things where your online brand is such an extension of who you need to be. Because editors see you online and are like, oh, you are this person. Therefore, we would love to like provide you with stories because you really love all of these topics and you talk about X, Y, and Z all the time. And you seem like a very cool and nice person. So your quote unquote brand is such an extension of who you are. Now, going back to if you are like me and a person who hates being online but realizes that it's such a important part of building your online brand to, do the things. My advice is to just post and be who you want to be online and don't really think about curating an image, which sounds like the opposite of what anybody is ever going to tell you, but it's the reality of the situation. I mean, if you overthink what it is, you're just gonna like lose it. And I think there was a period of time where I really tried to overthink it. It was like, I have to have all these curated like images and I have to have this like feed that looks really nice and pretty. And now I'm just like, fuck it. I'm just gonna post this photo of me with my broccolini sandwich. And like, if people like it, great. And if they don't, whatever. I don't care. But my sandwich was great and I like it. So and I think people resonate with seeing people who are living their most authentic lives, which I don't think that I'm spitting facts. I think I'm just, I think people like that. And I think if you just live your truth and post your work, then if people like it, they will gravitate towards it, and that's all you can do.
That makes a lot of sense, and that is, I think I can definitely relate to that feeling of needing to kind of curate and sort of be a certain kind of person. And it's weird. Like I've actually done a YouTube video about the difference in using social media as like a brand versus as a person when you kind of are your own brand, kind of like I am. Artemis Creates.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I am Artemis and I am a person and I'm a brand, and it's like yeah, I think just because I'm sort of pulled in so many directions as it is, it's really hard for me to even try to curate anymore. And my problem right now is just being too, busy or health stuff that I just don't post very much anymore because I just haven't been able to do or create very much lately. But yeah, I think it's interesting because I met with a marketing person recently, and I was sort of it was recommended to me this is the way that you should run your Instagram feed to kind of get maximum whatever. And I just I have this inherent dislike of kind of the standard way of kind of doing brand building stuff, because I feel like it's very like it kind of disconnects from my humanity. It feels like I don't feel like I'm a real person. But at the same time, there's that fear that if I'm too much of a real person, then it's going to seem unprofessional and that people aren't going to want to work with me. And so it's I don't know, where's the line?
I mean, it's very funny that you mentioned that, because so I am in the midst of writing a book, and when my book went out to publishers, one of the comments that I got back was, Amanda doesn't have a large enough platform online. And I was like, I mean, okay, well, some of these authors out here that you're purchasing books from only have 500 people on their Instagram. So what do you want from me? Do you want me to have 100,000 followers? I mean, I could go out and purchase 100,000 followers. So do you want actual engagement, or do you just want a false narrative of to be look, I have 100,000 followers? And I think at the end of the day, people don't actually understand when you do certain things online, you're not actually creating true engagement, you're creating false engagement. And do you want people who are actually engaged with your brand, which is engaged with you, the creator and the person, or do you want people who are engaged with just random hashtags and, garbage that you posted because you thought that you had to fit some sort of aesthetic?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's thank you for providing all of that insight. I appreciate it. I hope that my audience does as well. Yeah, so at this point, we'll do the plugs here. I will have you do yours first. Whatever you want people to know about or where to find you online, anything like that.
You can find me online. I am at Twitter and Instagram at Scriver. So that's AMASCRIV as in Victor ER. And my website is also the same, www.scriver.com. And then also I have a podcast. It's called High Lowbrow, and it's a podcast that deals with pop culture and internet culture, and we try to sort of deal with it in a fun way, because sometimes pop culture is sort of brushed aside, and we try and look at stuff like fandoms, and we talk about sort of homophobia in the housewives world, and we talk about all of the stuff that nobody else wants to talk about. I when I was chatting with my producer Danita, I said it's the podcast that I want to see in the world, and I thought was missing. Usually, when you see pop culture podcasts, they deal with pop culture that's trending, or it's reality television. There's no in between. So if you want to find that and you want to listen and you want to tell me what you think, it's at High Lowbrow Pod on Twitter and Instagram, and www.highlowbrowpod.com.
Very cool. I will put that all up on the screen as an overlay so it's easy for people to see, and also in the show description, of course. Of course, you can find this show online at hatcollecting.com and at hatcollecting on social media. You can find me at artemiscreates.com, and I'm also on Patreon at Artemis Creates. And please like and subscribe and tell your friends to help the show grow and keep the fascination flowing. Until next time, look forward to your next fascination.